Hello, welcome to the Flux late community meeting. It's October 21st, 2021, and we have got Flux maintainers, Flux core maintainers, community maintainers, and other folks, as well as community members on the call today. So I have pasted, since everyone else has been in this call, I think you can see it on the recording, the link to the docs, but you can also get that from basically on fluxcd.io will help you link directly to where to find the meeting, where to find the docs. In short, if you're on GitHub, you can go right to the fluxcd/community README. So we have some topics, and I think folks are filling out some other topics, but we've got our first topic, which is the round of what's happening on the way to GA. Generally we poke Michael about this just because of the image update automation stuff recently, but should I poke you about it now so we can kind of get up to speed?
Yeah, that's fine. So where it's at is, I think, same as last week in sort of outcome, but work has happened in the meantime. So Sunny has been working on a PR for redoing the tests for image automation, which is not a strict requirement for GA, but it does bring things into line with the other controllers. So it's quite desirable for that reason. And I am going to review that when I get a chance. And so it's been good enough to take some of my initial feedback into consideration and do a bit of reworking. So that's happening. And the other thing on the image controllers is, if I remember from last time, was adding the feature of being able to refer to use the kind of ACL mechanism to refer to a Git repository in another namespace. Or actually, a better way of saying that is give people cross namespace references to Git repositories from automations.
Right. Thank you.
And that's something that just needs to be implemented.
Yeah, I would wait for some feedback on the cross namespace references to image repositories and see how that fixes some. I know Railway and others have already migrated to it, so and refactored their repositories, so you no longer have to stick everything together. And
yeah,
we
sort of two. If I remember, the two kind of use cases that drive this. One is I want to keep the Git repository because I already have it there for my thinking. So it's already in Flux system, but I want all the other stuff to be defined in namespaces with the app. And then the other one is I want to define all the automation in one place in the system and have control of that in one place, but I want users, my tenants, to be able to set what the policies are. And those just about, don't quite, but just about correspond to those two different cross namespace things. Or at least they do well enough that you can set it up.
Yeah, what we allow today is what we made easier is the fact that you don't have to copy the pull secret from your app namespace to the Flux system namespace or other admin namespace. You can place the image repository next to your secrets where the pull secret is, let's say in your app namespace, and then drive the whole automation as a cluster admin without having to copy those. That's the only way we have, the only thing that we have enabled now is make life easy for cluster admins. We haven't addressed anything around, me as a tenant, I want to reuse this repo, which is declared by some cluster admin in some admin namespace. We currently don't allow that at all. So yeah, I expect cluster admins to switch to the new to use the new feature, and yeah, I'm waiting for some feedback before we go forward. Yeah, I can say a few things about what steps towards GA. Say so we released 0.18 almost 2 weeks ago. That comes with breaking changes due to switching Flux to server-side apply from kubectl. There were many issues on older Kubernetes versions, also around drift detection. So we iterated under 0.18. I think customized controller had like 5 releases during that period, where we collected issues, fixed them, collected, and so on. And we finally released 0.19, which should solve all issues around server-side apply, with all clusters, and things that don't quite work are now documented. There are still some issues with drift detection for some OpenShift custom resources. I have no clue what's going on there. But yeah, I think we should look into it, or at least document some of these problems. It's only about, so it's not about the fact that it cannot reconcile them. When it does, some fields get default values, or I don't know how OpenShift is different from Kubernetes itself. I never used OpenShift. I'm not a Red Hat user. So yeah, I would like some help debugging all of that. If someone
is that the thing that Philip reported, or something different, Stefan?
It has been, so the same person reported many issues. I've solved those that I could. There are also things with, oh, you have a key that's specified in Git and has no value, like empty string or the YAML null, and that created a drift between cluster state and Git. He removed those fields and that fixed it, but now we have a custom resource that embeds a Helm template, I think. I don't know how OpenShift works and what it does. It embeds a Helm template, and that one always drifts. So we have to, yeah, figure out someone with someone that is comfortable with OpenShift. I would like to spend a day or two and yeah, test some things. But so except this thing about namespace configs, where is some template inside, no other bug reports were new from people that upgraded to 0.19. So looks like 0.19 works for everybody, but there are some exceptions. There are always some exceptions. So yeah, that's the last thing I would really like to look into it deeply and understand what's going on.
Is there other stuff for GA news?
Just on oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. I hope to be unblocked really soon to take care of the last reconciler for the source controller, which a lot of the things hang on. I, as usual, got, however, involved in other bugs and needed to fix a regression bug first. So I really hope to start with it again tomorrow. But I spent some time on it yesterday evening, and it's in an all right shape. It just needs a lot of tests and some polishing. But basically 80% of the reconcile has already been rewritten. It only needs tests and yeah, one other round of logic review and polishing.
We have a really nice pull request open today on source controller about refactoring the bucket implementations. I've asked Michael to review it. I'm guessing we have to take that in after we merge it into main and refactor.
Yeah, backporting, but that's not too hard.
Okay. But I will not merge the refactoring branch until we sort out this pull request, because
That
it's
was
really
the-
nice. And
It was the follow-up to the other one I was
Yes.
looking at, right? That's why,
Yeah.
yes, got it, right, cool.
yes, and I don't want to say to this person that contributed, hey, now you have to rebase everything because we merged the refactoring. So let's try and review this, get it into a shape, merge it, and then backport it to the reconcilers dev branch.
Cool.
Mhm.
I was just going to say about that OpenShift issue with default fields or something. I'm not sure. I saw someone complaining about the exact same thing. It looked like this morning. It was an OpenShift user. Something doesn't apply. They have some thing that they tried to apply and it doesn't error out. It doesn't fail. It was noticed.
Skips it.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So the drift detections says, oh, there is no drift. These two objects are the same. So my guess is that it is something that the Kubernetes, so you add a value, but if that value has a typo or something in it, the name of the key, what Kubernetes API does first, it drops all the unknown keys and then it does the comparison. So you may look into Git and say, hey, I have this field here and it's not in the cluster and Flux doesn't apply it. But the reason it doesn't apply it, in most cases, what I've figured out so far is that, is a typo there. That field is not in the custom resource definition. So Kubernetes just silently drops it because, hey, this doesn't belong here. Which is nice that it, purges all the things that aren't supposed to be there, but
you'd like to get an error there and fix your code.
Yeah, it's like a black box in a way. That's why it's so good to use kubeval and do the static analysis before you commit to the branch that Flux pushes, because kubeval will verify against all the OpenShift. It has an OpenShift flag. So it verifies all these OpenShift custom resources. And it will, if you set it to strict, it will tell you, hey, you put this field here, but this field is not in the definition, right? So you know that it will be dropped. It will fail CI or it will fail locally and so on. But yeah, we cannot impose to everyone to have kubeval and so on. People were asking for us to embed kubeval in the Flux CLI, so they have a single binary. I'm not sure I want to do that, but yeah, if you can help me out collecting all these OpenShift issues and being able to replicate them on your cluster and work with me, I'll throw builds at you, trying to fix them. I'll really like that. So we can get this out of the way. Next week, are you free to do it? Cool.
Yeah, I have access to this cluster that he's complaining about, so hopefully I can replicate the issue.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's great. It's awesome. Thank you very much.
Cool, that's great. Quick question, do we, is the roadmap document pretty updated, do you think, with what most of what we just said?
I've updated to last week. Let's check it out. I've added.
I'm going to paste the link here for folks. The only thing I was thinking too is that the migration support timetable, for GA that's linked and is here. I wonder if we want to, I mean, there is a link directly to the roadmap for details, but the next item on the list that we have is the Flux 2 CLI moving to GA and Flux 1 moving to migration and security support only. We have a TBD date on that. I know we can't actually put a date yet, but do you think that it would be, is there anything that we should note there, you know, and link to directly, or should we just simply make it clear, like we already do, that follow the roadmap for those details for this next step?
Yeah, I think it's good. I don't want to touch the table yet until we finalize the refactoring. After we finalize the refactoring, and since that we are getting closer, I will review the timetable, make a pull request, and all of you can comment on it. Don't want to make false promises to anyone.
Exactly. Exactly. I was just making sure we're up to speed. Okay. Then I guess if that's all for GA right now, that's great. Those are great updates. Whose item is requesting cloud credits from CNCF? That's the next item on the agenda.
I think that's an old one from Daniel, or it might have just been transferred and he's not here to address it. I think I may have been on a email thread with him. Go ahead, Stefan.
Yeah. So there was an announcement from CNCF that there is a pool of credits available. We currently have the Azure end-to-end test that actually runs on Azure and is sponsored by the Azure Arc team and so on. We really want to get access to credits for Google Cloud and do the same end-to-end tests. For example, Google Cloud KMS, can you decrypt, encrypt? GCR, can you pull things? Can you push to their Git server implementation and so on? There are many things we should. We tell users in our documentation, hey, all these things with Google Cloud works, but it relies on manual testing, mainly because my dev cluster is on Google Cloud, but we shouldn't rely on that. So yeah, the goal will be to figure out where we have to apply and what we have to do to access credits for Google Cloud and in the future AWS. I know AWS also has this open source thing that's separate from CNCF, so there we have more options. But for this one, I will aim for Google Cloud first.
Sounds like a kind of mini project in itself, right? I mean, just the discovery bit of finding out what other options for asking CNCF for them. Maybe AWS are willing to gift us some credits, etc. There's that, and then there's also running the end-to-end tests.
Yes,
like Philip did for Azure. But yes, it would be absolutely nice to do. Maybe we can talk to Ihor. He's been pretty good as a liaison in the past. He might be able to help us with CNCF.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, maybe add the to-do there for Daniel. I guess he will be around next week at the early meeting to bring this up again with him and ask him, hey, can you reach out to CNCF people? Let's set a goal. Let's get Google credits and not try to get all the credits on all the clouds, because that will definitely not work. Let's try first this thing. I know Kubernetes end-to-end tests run on Google Cloud, so I'm guessing that's a known way how to apply for these credits.
Oh, great. Okay.
Should I make a thing for Daniel?
Yeah, so I actually just started that. Sorry, I was like, I know you're
okay.
taking notes and I'm tag teaming, but I just started that in the action items, but maybe you can move the notes
that's fine.
that you're writing into the action item, because yours is already better than mine. So great. Okay. And then thanks, Stefan, for filling in on that one. What about the next item? Whose is the DCO question? I would like to address this one or respond to this, but I'd like to get other maintainers' views too.
I guess Daniel, who is not here.
I'm not
Perhaps.
sure who put that in there, but I would speak up in favor of that. I think that we've seen, and even in other projects, I've seen a lot of trivial PRs that are held up over a DCO check, and I think it's silly. I understand the reason, I think, but
Not everyone's going to have the background. Kingdom, would you like to describe what the actual issue? What's the
yeah,
issue?
sure. So the issue, the discussion is about the DCO check on pull requests. So when you submit a pull request, you have to sign off your commits, and you use -- sign off to do this. And you can also sign off your commits by adding a piece of text that says signed off by, with your name and email address, to your commit body. And a lot of people, I personally get this wrong almost every time, and then I have to rebase and change my commit, and that's not very difficult for me because I'm a Git wizard, and I think a lot of us are here. But for trivial commits, Linkerd has changed their position to say that this is an unnecessary requirement. You can just tell us that you sign off, and we can override the check. So I think that's a very sensible position, rather than asking someone who's not familiar with rebase. And we have the squash button, so we can squash your commits anyway.
No.
If it's a problem, anything. I mean, I'm open to other opinions, and I'm just speaking for the position that's in the thread. But thoughts?
We cannot use the squash button. I think we've disabled it everywhere.
Yep.
But
Well,
for
it's separate, yeah.
small contributions, like the Linkerd text says, like you fix a typo and you do it from mobile straight on GitHub. It's quite, we tell people, hey, sign off, rebase, here are the instructions to do it. And there are people that said, no, I'm not going to do that. Already did it through the web UI. I don't even know how to do it or whatever, right? I don't know if it makes sense to ask sign off for typo fixes, but for serious contributions, like, okay, you add the new feature, that's something that we should definitely require. I mean, I don't think Linkerd dropped that, right?
No, I think it's a requirement of all CNCF projects to have a DCO of some form, but I think it's either DCO or CLA.
Yes, yeah, you don't want.
Yeah, so I agree with what you're all saying, and I agree with what you're saying, Kingdom and Stefan, personally. It's except for I have just a slightly augmented proposal, like it's just a slight tweak to that. If you want to hear it out, it's my suggestion is that we do remain strict with our DCO sign-offs, but we aid the end user a bit when they're having trouble doing it. And we don't let their PRs just languish forever, because really, as long as they give their sign off in a comment, I think what's interesting is that Linkerd saying, oh, we don't need to add it to the commit as long as it's in a comment. But that's, from my point of view, that's very, I'm not really sure. I think they're going to have a lot more to maintain in doing that, because then they have to maintain the audit trail of the comments. So I think that what we can do is we can just push their DCF for them if they give us permission to do that. If we say, hey, listen, we can just add this for you, but we need to know what your commit email is, you know.
If you follow the discussion in the Linkerd thread, they have a specific string that they're expecting people to post in a comment, and I think that simplifies the whole audit trail thing. But if to an extent, that at least if we can find this string, and then on any comments where the string is misspelled or someone didn't notice that it didn't exactly match, those will be an audit failure, and someone will, I mean, whenever you actually do that audit, I don't know how often that actually happens, someone will have to notice that and sign off manually, and I don't know whether that will ever matter to anyone.
Yeah, so my practical feedback is, if you're gonna add a line, just add your own sign off. You can also sign off on someone else's commit. So if you're a maintainer, you can, you know, you can do that basically.
You can rewrite commits in a pull request.
Correct.
As long as they check that box.
That's right. You can give co-authorship just normally.
That
just
also
like,
puts extra burden on the maintainer when we could just ask them to write the comment. And I would prefer for that personally.
yes, but okay, here's my question. If you're going to ask someone to add a line, why not just ask them to add the DCO line? The only reason I'm saying that is because then there's less.
No, wait. You cannot edit your commit message on GitHub. You can edit your pull request description and say they're signed off by me, right? That's what all the AWS repos are like. They don't require people to add it to the commit message. What they require, when you open the pull request, you have to add it in the pull request description. Of course, you can go to the pull request description afterwards and delete the whole thing. I don't know if GitHub keeps a history of that or not, but
it does. It does if you're on GitHub. Yeah.
You can put it in the merge commit. Do you get to edit the merge commit message when you do a merge? I think you do, right?
Oh, no.
So in theory.
Only the squash, only when you squash on the GitHub UI, which we don't.
I'm not. Okay.
You can edit.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. My mistake. Actually, yes. I think what I meant was for the. You mean for the final merge commit? I got you.
Yeah.
The mobile committer use case, I think, is what we're trying to address when we say you can just put it in a comment on the pull request. That is.
Yeah, my point is that if you want an audit trail, if you've said, I've just disabled this because they've said it in the pull request, you can still get it into the merge request as long as you remember to edit that and say, considered signed off because. You see what I mean?
That's a good point. And if we do that, we might as well, in that very message, add our own sign off as maintainers. And I only say that because then you don't actually have to continue each time to look back and say, whenever the DCO bot starts complaining for every past, I really don't know how Linkerd is going to keep up with this over time. But like for every single past missed DCO, there's going to be when that file is touched, there's going to be a complaint.
I've run into this in the Flux One project sometimes because I do rewrite people's commits when they're just a little bit need a change, and I found that the DCO bot requires my sign off too at that point because I'm a co-author then. So I think that sounds like a fair compromise to make sure if you're the one that's merging the pull requests that if you've disabled the manual check, you just write it into the merge commit. That seems like a reasonable policy, and maybe a little bit more auditable than Linkerd's proposal.
That's my suggestion, honestly. But it's whatever doesn't make it harder for maintenance of the project moving forward. That's it. For me, what I'm seeing is this proposal or this change for Linkerd. It looks like it might make it easier in the short term because you don't have to add these, but like I wonder how it's going to stack up when they have to review these every single time
You find that 99% of people are no longer signing off their commits because we have a way around it.
Right, when you're telling them that they don't
That could
have
be a
to.
problem.
And also, I don't believe that this got sign off from CNCF in any way. So I'm kind of curious about. I know someone pinged Chris A, but I didn't. Maybe I missed part of the thread, but I didn't see a response. I do know that when we had to do this for other Kubernetes projects and just various other CNCF projects, bringing in commit history from before DCO was required, that was an interesting process, and it required in the end a compromise with CNCF, basically just like advice from legal that what I had to do was add my sign off to all those commits that did not have them. So, and give co-authorship to the original author.
Yeah, but it, in a way, you sign off for someone else. It's just for, so legal can check that out, but has no.
That's correct. You're basically taking responsibility, I think, at that point, from like saying, all right, well, I'm going to keep that person as a co-author so that I'm still crediting them for the work that they did, but I'm the one that's really moving this into the, yeah. I agree with you. It does seem kind of, parts of it seems kind of silly, and there are some people that give like long rant, or I know there was a recent long rant about why DCO is totally useless and unnecessary, and it doesn't actually, well, I think it's been very valuable because look at the other alternatives, specifically CLA, which are, at least I've found to be kind of a pain. Yeah. So.
If we ask people to sign off with their Google ID or whatever, get some key from there. No one will fix any typos anymore if we go that way. So yeah.
So anyway, I know I was fairly opinionated about this, and it's not my call to make. I just wanted to give, because I've worked in this, like especially with DCO crap a lot. That's my opinion. I just want to leave that out there, and then if maintainers want to, excuse me, if the Flux governing maintainers want to decide that, because that would require, per governance, require at this point Stefan, Michael, and Hida to make that change. I'll be happy to write it down or repeat it somewhere, but at least you're all on the, well.
Let's table that for today so we have time for the other agenda items.
Yep. Does someone want to make an action item to make an issue for that?
Yeah, we could make a discussion or an issue, couldn't we?
Okay.
Discussion might be best.
Maybe first reach to CNCF so we don't get into that for nothing. If they don't agree with the linkerd move, I'm not for.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Doing
Ask
anything.
them what they think.
Yeah.
I'll take that action item on. I might as well.
Okay.
Worry about
Please
Thanks,
ask, and if they say it's okay, we can open a discussion and figure it out on our own if we want to adopt this. It definitely makes easier the typos and very small contributions, but if if CNCF doesn't agree, I'm not for adopting this.
If GitHub just added a button which said sign off all my commits, it would just be such a non-issue, because then it would be click to enable PR to be merged and no one would care.
There is also this issue with people making dummy accounts for because I don't know their main account on GitHub is with the email from their employer, and they don't want to contribute in the name of that employer, and they just create this dummy account. They open a pull request and they abandon that account, and the email is a bogus email. So the DCO intent is that you should have your real name there and an existing email. So
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a separate thing, presumably, though. I mean,
yeah.
Separate issue, but yes, totally an issue.
In case it turns out contribution, you didn't actually have permission to sign off, and then we have a throat to choke. rather than no throat to choke.
Yeah.
I mean, it was this case in Flagger a couple of times. People contributed, but they didn't want to divulge their name and real identity. And that was before Flagger joined Cncf. And I accepted those contributions. I mean, they were fine, but then it's up to me to maintain all of that because I cannot reach that person because I don't know who it is. But
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. So
what I understand from the DCO and how Cncf enforces it, we can't accept those types of contributions. If you sign off with John Doe, example.com, that pull request should be denied because the idea is you sign off with your real name, right? So
exactly, and there's a nice tool that GitHub, the DCO bot tool. When you have it checks your commit email, and it makes sure
yes.
to
yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So sorry, I knew you probably knew that, but I didn't know if others who were following along on this call knew that. So that's kind of nice as well, so that they can't do that thing that Stefan's talking about, that sock puppeting, not easily, not without a lot of work.
You have to verify their email, is what you're saying.
They have to verify
Yes.
their email.
Mm.
And I put a link to, I know it may sound like a broken record at this point, but I put a link to the DCO GitHub UI browser plugin for Chrome and Firefox. I know that doesn't help the issue when someone's doing this on mobile, because unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe mobile allows for those kinds of browser plugins in any form. Okay, yeah. So basically, until like you said, Michael, until GitHub adds this natively, we just have workarounds. So, but the plugin's pretty nice. Also, if anybody's really good at JavaScript, there's an open bug in that plugin from a few years ago when I first wrote it. So it works well. Just there's some issues with specifically switching for merge commits. It won't hurt us because we don't do squash commits. It won't hurt the Flux project because we don't do that. But there's like some weird bug in the way that if someone's like a JavaScript wizard, maybe you can even contribute to that. So
there's a bounty.
There's a bounty. The bounty is undying affection and love from all the
respect and admiration from Scott.
and everybody on CNCF projects who use this. I mean, it's used mostly by Linux Foundation and CNCF projects. This is a pain in the ass. Okay. Next item. Sorry. The next item is
there are 19 ECR support. Is that one?
Yep. I saw that in the image automation, image reflector controller. There's a new feature in 0.19. And I don't know if you are aware of this, but there was a thread only 2 days before that release where people were asking for that feature. So that's awesome because I was able to confirm that it does work for them and they found that they had some people to provide.
Cool. Yes, I found that thread.
Cool.
Thank you.
I just wanted to highlight.
So I should check through that thread and have a look.
Yeah, it sounded like they were
Feedback?
trying to put some notes on the PR itself, but there might be more detail in the Slack thread.
Yeah,
just so that you're aware.
someone did come back and say they'd tried it out and ask about something. So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right.
There is here a thing that we have to do. I didn't have time to do it. So we have in the image automation guide, which is separate from the API specs. So in the API specs, Michael has added how you can enable this feature. But most people will just read the guide, which shows you the whole thing. And in there, in the AWS ECR section is only, hey, you have to run this deployment or job, and you have to do all these steps. There we have to add as the first option. We also say there we don't have any native support for any cloud vendors, so that's why they have to run the jobs. We have to modify that and say we still don't have support for the majority of cloud vendors, but first step is here is how you can enable it for AWS. So we have to add maybe a slightly modified thing from the API docs. What I suggest we add is how you can enable that flag after you bootstrap with a patch inside the Flux system customization, where you patch only the deployment of the image reflector controller and you add that flag.
And this fellow provided a working example of that in the Slack thread. So I'm happy to take that and run with it and make sure the update guide gets a note as well.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
I added an action item for you, Kingdom.
Thank you.
Very cool. So then next one is you too.
Yes. So there's a PR now for the issue we discussed 2 weeks ago about the noisy deprecation warnings that I accidentally published in Flux v1. If anyone is not familiar with the context of this, the client Go version that we upgraded to is the safe one. So it's the last version in v121, which means that it won't break people's stuff, but it does make a lot of noise. And it probably isn't helpful in any way, the way that it makes the noise. So we discussed this 2 weeks ago. And I think it was Michael who suggested that we should copy the config and make it apply to one or the other of the dynamic client or the actual kubeconfig client. I'm not sure if the PR is exactly what you were asking for, but I will test it. But I would like just have some eyes. It's like a 3-line PR now instead of a 1-line PR. So if there's a minute to take a look at that, that would be super helpful. And that doesn't necessarily have to be Michael, but if you have time.
Yeah, no, I know the ins and outs of it. That's not actually the place I was expecting. But that may be because I remember it wrong. So yes, I'll have a look at it.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. The next two are Michael's.
They are. Actually, the second one is maybe slightly quicker. I just wanted to say welcome to Max and Sunny, who both put in project membership requests, which were approved. And I'm not sure whether, I think Max has been actioned and Sunny hasn't yet, but you know, it's in the mail. So you both now get a fancy Flux project badge for your GitHub profile and the respect and admiration of all of us, of course.
Thanks.
Welcome, guys.
And just to be clear, this is actually in recognition of contributions to the state, rather than being an aspirational thing. Both Max and Sunny have done really valuable work, and we hope they continue that, obviously. So that's why we give them the reward. Cool. So that's awesome. That one. And then the other one is the contributor letter, which is connected because I had to read it to figure out how to invite people to be project members. And the impression I got reading it was that it is a little unwelcoming just because of the language is kind of, please submit the 7-page form if you would like to help us, which seems there's a bit of an impedance there, if you like. And I think it's because the language is sort of ported from Kubernetes contributor ladder, which is sort of in the position of, you know, we're a big project, and you know, if you want to help, then you have to kind of fill in the forms, but we're not quite in that position. So I think perhaps we could rewrite it a bit. I think we still want to know that people have made a contribution and you know, there's a certain commitment there. But perhaps we could be a bit more forthcoming with helping people out.
Also, I have subscribed to the CNCF Flux Dev email list. Like, we don't use the email list like, you know, it's used in
that one.
Linux Foundation or the Linux kernel and so on, where everything is on email. No, in our case, 99% of the stuff are on GitHub discussion or Slack. So if you are not subscribed to this, it's definitely not a requirement for anyone. So
Yeah.
let's.
I agree. Also, our governance makes that clear that it's through the methods that Stefan just mentioned, not through the mailing list.
Yeah. I'm guessing this is just taken from the Cube6 documentation. So.
Well, so part of it, I think definitely, I agree with that. Part of it was taken from, like, split out from the original governance doc that we all worked on. But yeah, some of the newer stuff that's been added, it's taken from elsewhere. What do you think we can do to make that nicer for new people?
I guess there's two main transformations. One is to actually have less process, or switch the process around so it's slightly more inviting, because it is a bit like going to get your driver's license at present, whereas it shouldn't be like that. It should be like, we really want you to come in, to recognize your commitment, and you see what I mean. And then the other bit is maybe just, that won't get us as far, but might help a bit, is just a bit of rewriting, same requirements more or less, just a bit of making the language a bit friendlier.
And from me, my suggestion is, when we finalize the new checklist, let's take this and create an issue template on the community website. So when you go to new issue, you have there apply for member access, and you have this in front of you. You just check it, you add your most impressive pull request, and that's it.
That's actually just a matter of dotting the I and crossing the T's, because that was the intention. It was one of those things where we're running around, and so instead of actually making a pull request template, we just pasted in what the template would be. So we just need to actually make it. You're right, or an issue.
And remove some things from it and rewrite it so it's more welcoming.
Got it. What would you remove out of curiosity? Like, for example, are there requirements that we don't really have? Like you said, the email list, right? Is one.
Yeah, the email list.
What about the sponsors?
For
example, here with sponsors, I also have
a... good, but it doesn't tell you how to get them. I think that, you see what I mean? It shouldn't be, in a way, it shouldn't necessarily be up to you to go and butter people up. It should be like, hey, does anyone want to sponsor me? Oh yeah, that sounds good. So we could at least tell people, ask here or there, or submit the issue first and then tell us about it or something.
Good point. Yeah.
We should definitely tell people that if they are looking for a sponsor, posting in Flux contributors is what they should do. It's like, that's the place where, you reach out to every maintainer and people definitely volunteer, right? But yeah, the language should be more inviting than just, like it is today. Go, Sunny. Sorry.
I have had this similar type of process in Mozilla for Firefox development. And in their documentation, it was like 8 or 9 years ago, they say like the people who review your contributions, you can ask them if they can sponsor you. They used to use the term vouch. They can vouch for you.
Right. That's
a good idea. Yeah.
I also want to discuss a little bit the sponsor requirement about the fact that the sponsors have to be 2 and from different companies, which for 99% of the Flux projects, the Flux repos in the Flux, that works. But we have, for example, GoGit providers where all the maintainers are Weaveworks people. It's not, let's say, a project that's it's a low-level library that's being used by some parts in the Flux CLI bootstrap. That's about it. So it's not that popular, right? I'm having a hard time. I don't know, how can I ask someone, let's say Max, to sponsor someone else, but Max haven't reviewed, is not involved in that project and so on. It's like I'm in kind of a deadlock with this requirement. Maybe we should make we should say it's desirable to have the two sponsors from different companies if that's possible, but it shouldn't be, they have to be from different companies, because yeah, not all projects are that successful to have maintainers from multiple companies.
This is for maintainers, or is this for because so the membership is membership to the whole project, and that has two sponsors. I can't remember, so you may need to tell me. Is it same for maintainers? To be added to maintainers, you need two people from different companies that are already maintainers.
So the thing is, it's supposed to be progressive, if I understand correctly. So basically, you have to be a project member to be able to be a maintainer. So that's why a lot of these items don't repeat. They don't repeat because they're, yeah, let me just make sure that that's actually written in there. I thought it was.
So
Max,
another
you've got your hand up.
solution. Yeah.
Sorry, Stefan. Max, do you want to go?
Sorry.
Yeah, just
I would like just to answer to Stefan's point. I don't know if it's even like a CNCF requirement somehow to have like more diverse group of sponsors, like from different companies. But in any case, I think that's still a good requirement, and I believe it would even be possible for like people who only contribute to that repository that you talked about to get sponsors, like to get a sponsor who doesn't necessarily always contribute to that repository as well, like, because I would expect a sponsor to be able to look at the PRs like retroactively, that the person he is asked to sponsor or she, and see whether it'd be a good thing. I think it would not be too hard, even if I didn't contribute to that repository. I could be a sponsor for a certain person who only contributed to that repository.
Cool.
Yeah, because the project members are org wide. They're not repository specific. So you're definitely right about that. And also, I'm 99% sure, but I'll double check that CNCF doesn't have any such requirement that they're sponsored from. I mean, because I know they're
Linkerd is a buoyant project. Come on.
Yeah.
And there are so many others like that. There is no such requirement. Like 90% of the projects wouldn't be in CNCF if that's a requirement.
I was more asking.
Yeah. I really, and the only reason I say 99% sure is because some requirements have been updated since, over time since I've looked, but I would be shocked. I would be like shocked, honestly, if that were added as a hard requirement. Yeah. So that, I mean, it's really good to have ruled that out. So I think the only requirement is that this falls under the self-governance of the Flux team. So in order to change anything substantive to the community roles, or basically any of the processes that relate to governance, which this would, because it would relate to project members that then have a role in that, like in voting and other stuff like that. It just needs Michael, Stefan, and Hida to agree.
Yeah, another workaround would be, okay, this contributor deserves to be a maintainer because, I don't know, he or she made a lot of contributions. we can add that person as an external contributor and give it rights only on that repo, but in a way it's not fair to that person because that person cannot display the Flux logo on their GitHub profile like everybody else, right? So,
Yeah.
because what I understand from here, if all the maintainers of a repository said, okay, we are we want to have this other person be a maintainer as well. According to our governance, that's okay. But I cannot add that person as a member to the Flux organization without 2 sponsors and so on, right? So I can just go and if that's settled, I can add it as an external contributor. But I find that is not that fair to that person, right? Because it is a maintainer to a repo, but not a org member. It's not like an org member can do anything inside Flux beyond a particular repo where it has rights, but is this thing, right? You are a member or not of the whole organization.
So Scott, what you were saying is it should be progressive, and I'm not sure if it's codified that way.
I believe it is because the first line under maintainer is maintainers are elected project members. It links to the project member section. That's the only place that it is. It doesn't say it otherwise. It just says it in each at the beginning of each role. Why don't I give myself an action item to this, Stefan? Because
I would. So my suggestion would be if we all agree to soften the requirement and say that it's desirable to have 2 sponsors from different companies instead of is required. And in extreme cases where we cannot find 2 sponsors from different companies for some repo, instead of adding that person external contributor, we can add it as a project member and then add it to that particular repo. So everybody has the same status. I don't know how to call it. Bragging rights.
Yeah.
But since Max volunteered, I'm going to ping you.
Right on.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. Also, should we mention Sorry, Michael.
My internet connection is a bit unstable, so sorry if it's choppy. The 2 different companies requirement is so that you can't just flood the project. I don't think we're in imminent danger of that, but that's the idea. I mean, it doesn't matter too much if you flood the project with members. I mean, it's just it's unfair to people that are already in there, but doesn't give anyone any sort of more power.
Membership is a voting role, right?
But it does give you votes, yeah. So, well, votes, some influence, maybe.
Actually, what does it give? Now that I'm sorry, I'm just taking one more look at this. So that's my first thought, but is that actually true?
I think the intent was we give you a badge, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's true. Only maintainers have. Let's see, real quick. I'm just going to look at that because that's a really good.
That's behavioral stuff.
There's one thing that stuck out to me yesterday when I read the doc, because it mentions a team that doesn't really exist. So I am in a triage team now, and that's not even mentioned in the roles doc. So maybe that has to be updated.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh
yeah, I've created the triage team some months ago to allow members to help us with issues across multiple repos. Yeah, we have to sync from time to time the teams which are in the Flux GitHub org with the document.
Just to throw some more fuel on the
remove it from the doc. Sorry.
Who would be the ones that, like, because the oversight committee would be the ones voting to change the rule of more than one company, right?
Yeah, so to be clear, the project members aren't in any way, I just give a review just in case something weird slipped through that I just didn't notice in that PR. It didn't. It really is just what Stefan and Michael just said. It's really to give the badge on your, it's for several things, but one of the most visible things is to give the badge on your GitHub user to say, I am part of this organization, and then the roles, teams are not visible, but we can make that visible in docs if we need to, or sorry, teams are visible to org members within GitHub, but they're hidden to anyone who's not an org member. So if we want to make that more visible somewhere to give more kudos than just an optional like logo on our GitHub username, we can do that in a doc or something like that, and that could help maybe Stefan with the syncing that you're talking about, the team syncing. I made action items to do those two things, and I'll connect with you on that one. But just to be clear, it doesn't give any additional voting rights or anything like that. Only under the governance doc, there's a decision-making section, and it's really the people that make the decisions. The decider section are really only, they're based on repo. So there's the maintainers of that repo, and then there is the oversight committee, which is
in case the maintainers of the repo don't agree. We didn't have any that sort of situation until now, but yeah, who knows.
Exactly, and if there's something organization-wide that is wider in scope than just one of the repos, for example, anything like what we're talking about now. All right, I'm gonna shut up.
I just mean like the rule really has no effect, because it's like if there's a rule saying, oh, okay, so you need more than 2 companies to approve or to sponsor, but the oversight committee has the option to change that rule, and all the people on the oversight committee work for one company. It's like, then that rule in itself really, it just negates.
It's useless.
It's useless. It really doesn't matter anyways.
I agree with all of you, and it's a nice thing for a a much bigger scaled project. It's that line here that was added, I think, was drawn from elsewhere, and it's very, very aspirational for Flux. At the very least, in our governance, we say that we are aspiring to broaden to members in other organizations. So it's not like we have to protect ourselves from trying to take over. We started like Monopoly, and we're trying to spread it out. So yeah,
and we are slowly doing it, but it's not the size of Kubernetes org, where are like thousands of people, hundreds of organizations, right? So maybe it doesn't make sense to copy all their rules in here, because when we get to that scale, I'm all for changing all of that and put more strict rules in place.
So then we just need to like get you, Stefan, and Michael and Hida to agree to basically like sign off on the PR, and I'll connect with you about doing that so you can decide. But it sounds like at least there's no big community objection here.
Yeah.
Okay. Did we, have I been bad and we went 10 minutes over? Thanks everyone for staying. I didn't even notice the time. Is there anything that was like super pressing on that list that I know that there was the one-stop shop item. I think I'll just announce it real fast, like, check it out, it's on demand. So please take a look.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Just register for the conference and you get a link, and it's the on-demand link. So it's right through Zoom.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.